Hey, and welcome to Breaking Bread, hosted by me, Crunk Chocolate. I am, just hanging out. This is our show where I break verbal bread with the quote unquote enemy. Whenever Manchester City has an upcoming match, I will be here having a conversation with the supporter of City's upcoming opponents. Shout out to all those watching right now. Like the show, hit that thumbs up, leave some comments, ask some questions, share on your socials. And to you people watching the replay, love you, appreciate you. Wednesday, Manchester City welcome a club legend and his team to the Etihad. Vincent Company brings familiar faces like James Trafford, CJ Egan Riley, and I actually wasn't even aware that they have doubled up on our keepers. They have Aryanet Muric as well. Shady gang, please give it up to the most dope Joe of Turfcast. How's it going, homie? How's it going?
Yeah, good, thank you, mate. Good morning, good evening, whatever time of day it is you're listening to this. Obviously, yes. Pitch black outside here, freezing, raining as you would expect with it being England. I've just been in Manchester today, actually, and it's chucking it down, as you'd expect in Manchester. But yeah, morning over there, I believe, or is it noon? I can't remember.
Yeah, it's noon. Yep, so noon, it's officially afternoon, yes.
But afternoon, mate, afternoon.
Thanks for coming on. Yeah, no, this is great. I'm super excited to cover this matchup because, again, Company was one of the first City footballers I fell in love with. He is literally the first City shirt I bought with a name on it. So anytime he can come and visit us, I'm okay with. Naturally, I'd much rather if it would just be like a fun thing than me low-key having to root against him, but it is what it is. I do want to start off with you talking about Turfcast a little bit. Let us know a little bit about your show and what you do.
Yeah, so originally started out as just a podcast before lockdown. I've been doing it since 2018 now, so 6 years, which is frightening, really. But yeah, started out as just a podcast. But during lockdown, I ventured more into like doing a few lives and stuff like that. And then obviously lockdown eventually ended. And I just carried on with the lives and the videos. And I do more like a social media and YouTube and podcasting now. But yeah, going from strength to strength, we've got, 2 shows on the channel, a pre-game show, a full-time show that also go out as podcasts. They've both got sponsors now. So that's brilliant, and it gives me a chance to be able to expand and get better and invite better guests on and get better hardware and stuff like that. So yeah, we also do fan reactions as well after the game. If you want to watch a bunch of miserable Burnley fans on Wednesday evening / Thursday morning, feel free, because we'll all be doing our fan reactions. There'll just be a few videos on the channel of, like I said, Burnley fans probably responding to another 5 or 6-0 defeat, as it usually tends to be. But yeah, we do quite a lot now, and I've spread myself a bit thin, to be honest. But it is what it is. I enjoy doing it, and that's why I do it.
Honestly, I feel you. I know what it's like. You're just banging out all this stuff and doing all these episodes, and just the more you think about it, kind of the worse off you get. So you
exactly, yeah.
So I want to start here. It's one of the questions that we tend to ask most of our people, because we're about like 50-50 US and non-Americans when we bring guests on. I am aware that you probably chose Burnley because it's where you live, but the way that it works is you probably have a handful of clubs around you that you could have chose, you could have ended up rooting for. So how was it, or what was it that made you choose Burnley?
You've already hit the nail on the head, mate. I'm Burnley born and bred. There was never any other choice for me. My dad's a Burnley fan. My mum was a Burnley fan. My grandma's from Burnley. My granddad was actually Irish. That was the era when a lot of the Irish came over to England. Pretty much everybody my age has at least one Irish grandparent. It's just a thing around here. So yeah, it's just where I'm from, and that's how I see football. I know it'll be wholly different for yourself, but it's always for me like it's your town, your team, and these lads represent you and where you're from. They represent your mum and where she were from. They represent your grandma and your granddad and where they were from and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, you could literally see Turf Moor from the house I grew up in.
That's cool.
Live on a street. On a street. Moved out when I was 8. Called Prescott Street, which is literally next to the turf. It's literally next to the turf. And before I got a season ticket, say if my dad was working and couldn't take me on, there was a park across the road from my house, and there was a climbing frame on it. So what me and some of my mates used to do, I'd climb to the top of the climbing frame and peek into the stadium. Now you couldn't see any of the pitch, but I could see the fans. So if the fans were jumping up and down and you could hear the noise, I'm like, yeah, I think we've scored. But sometimes, because I was like 6, I won't get it. Like I'd hear celebrations and noise, and it'd be the away fans, but we couldn't see the away fans. So we'd be like, yeah, we've scored. And we hadn't. We'd conceded, So it weren't the best, but we did that. And then I eventually got a season ticket when I was around 6 or 7. And I've just had one ever since, to be honest with you.
I love that, though. Yeah. We don't. This is kind of like the clash that I do have with some people, because we get a lot of people who try to, I guess, discredit us or hate on our fandom because we're Americans, which I completely understand. But I don't really appreciate that, because it's like we go through a lot to really connect with the show, with the games, and take in the stuff that we're doing. I'm up at like 6 or 7 a.m. at times watching matches, and some people just go, all right, I like this color of this team, so that's who I'm gonna root for and stuff like that. But I wish we got more like if someone asked, why do you choose that team, instead of just like assuming I'm some stupid plastic. And there's no need to even get deep into that conversation. But it's just you just love.
I can imagine it's frustrating though. Like Burnley obviously don't have as many US fans as the Big Six, but we've started to get a few now, especially with the JJ Watt thing. He's brought a few people over with him, and obviously we've got American owners now as well. So it was Burnley have been rubbish all my life until about 2009. So from me being born up until I was 21, they were rubbish. Like they never did anything. They were never in the Premier League. My primary school years were spent watching Burnley in what is now League One. And then they got promoted in the year 2000, which is when I was in year 7 at what we call high school, secondary school. And then all of my secondary school years were spent watching Burnley battle it out and battle relegation most years in what is now the Championship. So, in 2009, we won the playoffs. It was quite funny, actually, because we were dreadful for years. And then in 2009, all of a sudden, we were half decent and we went up. And we were never expected to stay up, so we came straight back down and then spent another 5 years in the Championship. But then we went up eventually with Dyche. Then we got relegated. Then we went up again and then stayed up. And obviously that's the recent spell we've had in the Prem, which came to an end not last season, the season before. So this is pretty much the best we've ever had it, the last 10, 15 years for us. And like I said, when I was born, Burnley were in the what is now League Two. So for us to be on the journey that we've been on, I know City are a similar thing. Like a lot of City fans can relate to this because they fell down the leagues as well. Like when we were in Division 2, I remember a really good game against you guys in the year that you were in Division 2. I think you only spent 1 year in there, to be fair. But it was a game at the Turf in Division 2. You scored first, then we equalised. Then you scored again, then we equalised again. Then you scored again, and then you scored again and you won 4-2. But it was a really good game. I think Dickov scored in it. That's how long ago it was. Might have even got a couple or even an hat-trick. But yeah, we've had some good games against City down the years. And I even managed to go to Main Road once, obviously before it became Flats or whatever it is now. Won't really, not good memories. I think we got beat 5-0 or 5-1. Which is standard for Burnley against City, isn't it? But it's one of them things. Like it was weird actually because we were top of the Championship at that point, and you were second, and everyone's like, "Oh, if Burnley can go to Main Road and proper make a statement, then they'll probably go up." You won that game. You went top of the league after that game, and then you stayed top of the league, and we finished 7th. Didn't even finish in the playoffs. So thank you for that. But yeah, I had some good games against City down the years. It's just the last 5, 6, 7 years haven't been great.
I actually would like to hear this also. So Chris Hernandez would love to hear your reaction to Burnley's 100-point season last year.
Yeah, well, for me, in my opinion, and I've said this before on other channels and, radio shows, whatever, It is my favourite ever season following Burnley. And I am 35 now. I know I don't look it before you say, but I'm 35 now. And I've seen us win the Championship before under Dyche. I've seen us stay up in the Premier League. I have seen us finish 7th in the Premier League. I even went to watch Burnley play against Olympiacos in Athens. Like, I flew out to Athens. I thought, I can't miss this.
Yeah.
My little boy had just been born. And if my missus can hear me, she was fuming. And I'm like, no, I'm going Athens. And she's like, but you know, I've got a little boy. What was it? I'm going. So once in a lifetime opportunity, I am going. And I went there, spent 2 nights in Athens, spent a lot of money. We got beat. But yeah, like I said, I started following Burnley when we're in what is League 2 now. So I was like, this may never happen again. And I don't think it will. I have to do it. And I did it. And it was fantastic. But last season tops all of that because we were just so good. Like, it's come back again this season, but sometimes when it's raining, like it does here a lot, and it's this time of year, and you know, Burnley are playing Fulham on Saturday, I'll get up on Saturday morning and I look outside. I think, can I really be bothered? Like, with rubbish, we might get beat. I always do end up going. Obviously, it's just the cycle you go through as a fan of a team that loses every week. But I sometimes look out the window. I think, can I really be bothered? But I do always end up going on. But last season there was none of that. Looking out the window, rain in my face, didn't care. I was loving it because I know we'd go there and turn someone over 4-0. And it were absolutely fantastic. And I loved it. I loved every single minute of it. And then to win the league where we won the league at Blackburn Rovers, our arch rivals, for those who don't know, was just, it will never happen again. It's another once in a lifetime opportunity, something that I will never see happen again, because Burnley don't play Blackburn that late in the season. The point is they put it further up, so stuff like that can't happen. But because Burnley and Blackburn both got to the quarterfinals, it had to be moved back, and then we won the league at Ewood Park. It's like you guys winning the league, winning the Premier League at Old Trafford. Yeah, sensational. So yeah, last season that was my favourite ever season.
I was hopeful for you, specifically for company. I want him to succeed as much as possible. It brings all the joy and the smiles to my face. And
yeah,
watching the season has been interesting because, yeah, I don't want to see you guys go down, because I would love to see what you could do with another season in the Premier League with a little bit more money and another year with the people that you have, and another year of company knowing how to handle the situation. Yeah, I want to start with your transfers though. Obviously, players like James Trafford, Aaron Ramsey, Sander Berge, these are all kind of like names that maybe people wouldn't think too much about, but I really feel like those are sneaky good picks. They're youngish, but well, Sander Berge is 25, which is still very young. But James Trafford, Aaron Ramsey, 20 years old, they have the whole world in front of them. It's one of those things that if you stay up, it's great for them. If they go down, that they're the perfect age where it doesn't really affect or ruin their career as much. How are you feeling about the players that have been brought in? I don't know if you've done anything in the winter as well, but how are you feeling about the players that have come in? And is anyone, I guess, doing any better or maybe even worse than what you anticipated?
Well, to be honest, like it's a bit of a debate amongst the Burnley socials and stuff like that. The transfers, because they've not really. Trafford's come in and he's made a few mistakes. He's got better as the season's gone on, and you hit the nail on the head already when you said the young. That's why Trafford's been brought in. He's young, and he's got, like I said, the world at his feet. He's going to be a very, very good goalkeeper. He already is a very good goalkeeper for 20, 21-year-old. So he will be England's number one, and he will be a very good goalkeeper, and Burnley will sell him on for a profit. But at the minute, I don't think he's ready for the Premier League, if I'm honest. And obviously, you mentioned at the top of the show, Ari Net-Muric as well. He's a former City keeper. He came in last year, started slowly, like Trafford has done this year, and then got better and better and better as the year went on, like Trafford seems to be doing so far this year. But he was given time to grow in the Championship. There's more games. You're not playing against lesser opposition. You're not pressed as much as you are in the Premier League. The intensity is not as high. So he was given this chance to grow, whereas I don't think Trafford has been given as much of a chance because of how good the Premier League is. Mm-hmm. But then what a lot of Burnley fans were disappointed with when Trafford came in, like I saw Trafford coming in like, brilliant bit of business that. We'll sell him on in 5 years for, I don't know, 40 million quid, make 20 million pound profit, and then reinvest. But then this season, he's probably going to be on the bench, or we'll loan him out to a championship club. But what Vinny did was stuck him straight as number one, and that. It didn't annoy Burnley fans at the time, but when he was watching, and we were watching him every single week, and they were making mistakes every single week, there was massive debates like, we should be dropping Trafford, we should be doing this. But obviously Vincent stuck to his guns, and he is getting better. That debate has died down, probably more so because Burnley fans know that Trafford's going to be the number one now. He's not going to get dropped because he's already been through the bad stuff and made mistakes every week and still kept his shirt. But a lot of Burnley fans were a little bit despondent about Muric being dropped out of nowhere. And it happened on the wings as well with some of the other players that brought in. The probably standout performer that we've brought in is... there's a couple. There's probably three actually. Is Luca Koleosho, who unfortunately has an injury now, so he's out for this season. But he at the start of the season was fantastic. He were taking fullbacks on left, right, and centre. He had Diego Dallo on toast when we played Man United, twisted and turned him inside out. He fell on his arse at one point. He absolutely dominated him. But then unfortunately he got injured. But then another young lad called Wilson Odebear come in, who we actually spent a bit more money on, and he's been just as good. And he's doing the same thing. He's running at defenders. So we've got some good wingers. And the other one, you've already mentioned him, Sander Berg. Like, he again started the season quite slowly, but Vincent was playing him as a defensive mid in a double pivot alongside Josh Brownhill, which is what we did last year with Cullen and Cork. Now, Cullen, I don't know why, he was a Championship Player of the Year last year, but in the Premier League, he's out of his depth. He gets properly overrun in the Premier League. So we changed it up a little bit, brought Josh Brownhill back, who was playing as attacking mid, put him in this double pivot, as I said. But then it wasn't working because Sander Berg is more of an attacking mid type of player. And again, Vincent, I do feel, I love Vincent, don't get me wrong. There's been some Burnley fans complaining about him recently and saying they might want him out, but I'm sure we'll get to that. But he did make a lot of mistakes at the start of the season. But he is a young manager, being a manager in the Premier League for the first time. So maybe we should have expected it. But he was making a lot of mistakes, and playing Sander Berg in DM was one of them. He's tweaked it a little bit now. He's more of a box-to-box midfielder, more like a number 8 role, which suits him more because it gives him the chance to drive at the opposition, and that's what he's good at. So Sander Berg has been a really good one. And the two wingers, Koleosho and Odebear. We've not done too much in the winter window yet. We've brought in Fofana from Chelsea, who's a striker, just going to be a backup for Foster probably. But we might see a bit of flurry of activity over the next couple of days. We might be bringing in a defender called Esteve. Probably butchered that and got it wrong, the name, but he's a French centre-back. And there is a young Dutch left-back who is playing at Fenerbahce at the minute, whose name I've struggled to remember. Osterwolde, again, butchered it. Burnley accent doesn't do me any favours. But yeah, fingers crossed over the next couple of days, because we really do need a left back because Charlie Taylor's injured, so he won't be playing on Wednesday. So yeah, we are a bit light, but yeah, fingers crossed for some more incomings.
That's been a very interesting conversation amongst City fans also, because I think they're great. Everyone seems to just be looking at the summer and trying to make decisions on who to bring in there. Is it Joshua Kimmich, who I want us to bring an actual right wing back, not a player who can play a bunch of positions, but that's also Pep's thing. I want 11 midfielders on the pitch. If I can get that, if I can do that, it's a good thing for me. And so it's going to be interesting to what's going to happen, because I feel like we're going to have a lot of fallout this summer, and it's going to be a lot of drama. As actually, this has nothing to do with either of our teams, but since everyone's making such a big deal out of it, how are you sad? Are you stricken, grieving of the news that Klopp is leaving Liverpool and the Premier League?
No, I don't like the guy. I respect what he's done at Liverpool. 100% I respect it. I just don't get the fanfare. Like, Liverpool, he's won the Premier League once, he's won the Champions League once. The Super Cup and Charity Shield don't matter to English fans as much as they do to other fans, so we don't really see them as major trophies. And I think he's won the League Cup or the FA Cup. He's lived in Pep's shadow, and he will be a miss to the Prem because his football is good to watch. but
Yes.
I don't think he's been as good as people make out. But I do think he's a little bit unlucky that he's obviously come up against such a good City side over the last 8 years, however long he's been there. But the guy's a Mardos. All he does is complain. Every single press conference is mourning about Summit. I'm not bothered to see the back of him at all. I will probably miss Liverpool's style of play. If I'm honest, I do enjoy watching Liverpool, but as a person, I can't really get on board with Klopp. And I've met him a couple of times as well. Like, I used to be a journalist, so I've actually filmed some of his press conferences before, and I just don't like the guy. Like, I just don't like how he's always mourning. Like, he's a good people person, and he lets himself down when he goes into press conferences and just mourns. But sometimes, like, the mask does slip, and he'll bite back at a journalist, and you can see what he's really like. And yeah, for me, I'm not too bothered. I don't particularly like him, and I don't particularly like Liverpool. So yeah, not too bothered.
Hey, I'm not gonna argue too much. Yeah, I respect his ability and what he does. It was funny because I wasn't the most familiar with him when he was at Dortmund. I just saw all the videos of him just doing all the running and the jumping and the smiling, and
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
he just seemed to very much connect with his players. And when City was going through there, who are we going to bring in? There was a moment where I was like, sure. But then he went to Liverpool. The next year we got Klopp, and it's just all been history. So I say good riddance. If that means what will be the craziest is once Klopp leaves, Pep will be the only manager in the Premier League who has won a Premier League title.
Yeah, that is crazy, isn't it? That's mad. We need to get Mourinho. I would love to see Mourinho back, to be fair. I love Mourinho. I know he's just left Roma. I've actually been a massive hypocrite there because I've gone on about Klopp whinging, and then all Jose does is there's something about Mourinho. Yeah, there's something about Mourinho. I just love him, and it's mad because I don't know if it's something to do with the English personality, but a lot of English people resonate with him, and a lot of English people love him. And I put a tweet up saying would love to see him back in the Prem, and a lot of people agreed with me. Yeah, I don't know where he'd go now, to be honest, unless he went back to United if Ten Hag left, but he didn't really do too much there. I mean, I guess he did win the Europa League or whatever, if it were UEFA Cup back then, I don't know.
Technically, the most success that United has had was through Mourinho.
True, yeah. Good point. I just obviously, like I said, I grew up in the 90s and United were the team, so
yes.
Anything compared to what they used to do is pretty poor now. But yeah, I'd love to see him back in the Prem. I would love it because I used to work at DAZN, and I used to do a lot of the Serie A games. So I used to see him, and I actually saw his last game, and he was just whinging, and I was laughing my head off watching it. But yeah, I would love to see him back in the Prem, if I'm honest.
Not gonna lie, I would too. He's fun. He's entertaining. I love watching the pressers for managers, and a few of these managers around here are kind of boring. Like, that's why I love Ange, because Ange doesn't let the English media create narratives. He's just like, no, bro, like, this is how it is. I hear what you're saying and how you're saying it. I don't appreciate that. So I'm all here for it. Well, I guess you kind of touched in how you feel the season has gone so far. Started off a little rough, kind of was questioning the decisions made by your newish manager. Looking at things now, how are you feeling about the club?
The club's still in a decent enough position, in my opinion, I think.
Yes.
We've got a lot of resellable assets. There's been a lot of people, like I said, there's been a few moans coming out onto social media and stuff, which I kind of understand because it's not been a good season. Like, it's just not been enjoyable to be a part of. Whereas last season, there's a lad that comes on my podcast called Sam, and he sums it up perfectly. He's like, last season we were on cloud 9, and now we're all the way down at the bottom again, and it's just such a flip of emotions. So it's not great. When you try and take a step back and look at the bigger picture, the club itself is in a healthy position. But yeah, the season hasn't been enjoyable at all. I'm 99% convinced we are going down now, and that's just not me being negative. When you look at the points that we've got so far, like, we're more than halfway over the season. We've only got 12 points. For us to get out of it, we're going to need to get at least 25 in that's probably about 20 in the second half of the season. Like, where are they going to come from? And we're obviously going to lose on Wednesday, and then you've got Fulham. So then Fulham becomes a big game, because then after that you've got Liverpool and Arsenal. So if you get beat against Fulham, That's like you're on like 25 games and you've only got 12 points. That's abysmal. That is abysmal. So it's like you mentioned earlier, like you wouldn't mind see company just about stay up and then hopefully crack on as a Prem. I think going down in the end will be good for us. We'll have another year in the Championship next season, and I do think we come back up, depending on obviously who we lose. But last time we went down, Vincent Kompany came in the summer. He obviously wasn't the manager, so whereas this time he is the manager, so he knows what he's got, sort of thing, and he knows what he needs to do. So that puts us in a better position. Last time we played in a certain style of play, and nobody at the club knew about this new style of play that Vincent were going to bring in. Obviously, that isn't a problem anymore. We know how we're going to play. We know we're going to dominate the ball. We know we're going to try and get in people's faces and attack them in the Championship next season. So that's fine. And last time we went down, we lost the whole spine of the team. We lost Nick Pope, James Tarkowski, Ben Mee, Ashley Westwood, Chris Wood, Maxwell Cornet, all these massive players. Chris Wood was about 6 months before we went down, to be fair, but still, we lost all these massive players. Weghorst as well, like he was terrible for us, but we lost him and he was still an important part for us at that point. And we had to bring in so many new faces, so many new transfers, and we still went up. And we won't need to do that this year, next season. We won't need to do it. And if you have Wilson Odobert and Luca Collioshaw on the wings in the Championship, I'm sorry, but from what I saw of that league last season, there is a lot of dross in that league. There's a lot of terrible defenders. There's a lot of poor teams. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I remember there was us and Sheffield United, and in the first half of the season, I apologise for swearing, but there were Blackburn Rovers. They were top of the league at one point. When we beat them on the 22nd of November, or whenever it was, they were top. We went top when we beat them. And they are dreadful. Like, they've got no decent players apart from Sammy Smodic and that Adam Wharton, who's a young lad who will do very well, to be fair. But they've got no good players. And the fact that the only thing that worries me about the Championship this year is there's 4 good teams in it, which means one of them's going to stay down there. So we will have to fight it out with probably Ipswich next year or Leeds, somebody like that. Because I think Leicester will go up and I think Southampton will finish second. So it's between Leeds and Ipswich for the playoffs. Coventry might come good as well because they're doing well. But I think a season down in the Championship next season will do Vincent Kompany the world of good. He'll be able to rethink his ideas. He'll be able to enjoy another promotion, build another team, get some momentum behind him again, and then hit the Premier League again, start again, learn from the mistakes he made the first time around, and use the season to try and think about his mistakes and think about where it went wrong, but rather than staying up on the last day of the season in May, then all of a sudden, right, wow, it's August. Well, it's July, pre-season friendlies. Whereas this time he'll have time to think about what he's done, because I think we'll go up from the Championship in a similar to fashion what we did last year, to be honest.
I hope Leeds stays down, and in fact, I hope they get relegated another. I'm not a fan of that club at all. So Everton, with their problems that's happening, they could end up saving one of the teams. I call it the relegation station. One of the teams could be saved in the relegation station. Currently, that's Luton Town. Do you see your side? I mean, you mentioned possible tough match against us, but then you have a winnable match and then a couple of just like really tough games. Is there a world where you could see them catching up with Luton Town? Because Luton Town, they also have to go through the same amount of teams, and I think they could lose just as likely as Burnley can.
I think we can catch Luton. Whether we will or not, it's a different thing. We were, in my opinion, robbed of a win against them last time out because we played them at the Turf and we drew 1-1. They scored in with the 92nd minute. It was definitely a foul on Trafford. I don't care what anyone says. It was a poor decision from Trafford to come for that cross at that time. But it was still a foul. So, yeah, they didn't really create much, and I felt like we handled them pretty well. And we've already beaten them at Kenilworth Road as well this season. So I do think Luton's luck will run out eventually because they're scoring late goals that are clearly fouls and VAR's missing it. Or when they beat Sheffield United the week before they played us, or a couple of weeks before they played us, Sheffield United scored 2 own goals for them. So their luck's going to run out eventually. So I do think we finish above them, but I don't want to take anything away from Luton because I think they've done a really good job to be above us this year, if I'm being honest with you. And I don't mean that in a big-headed way. Like, we literally finished 21 points above them last season. 21 points. And then we spent over £100 million in the transfer window. They spent £4.50. So to be above us, credit to him and credit to Rob Edwards. He's done a fantastic job. But I do think the luck runs out. I do think they go down. And I do think we probably finish 18th. But yeah, Everton haven't been great recently. And obviously, if they get docked another 10 points, and that puts, the cat amongst the pigeons, as they say. So yeah, fingers crossed for us that happens. But I would like to stay up on merit rather than staying up because Everton got 20 points deducted. But if Everton didn't have their points deduction, now they'd be on 27 points, which means they'd be 12th. And the gap to Forest is 8 points. So we're going to need something. We're going to need something. So yeah, we need a run, first of all. We need to get above Luton. We need to put ourselves in with a fighting chance. But I think the only thing that saves us now is Everton getting docked more points and maybe Forest getting docked some. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
This whole FFP stuff is getting real crazy, and I don't even say that as a City fan. Like, when I say I am not arsed about these 115 charges, I am not worried at all, and it's not from just being a cocky City fan. They've done this already with a whole other with UEFA, which is much bigger, and I would assume has way more money than the FA. And I just don't understand why the FA wants one of your biggest, most historic clubs of late to be a giant dirty cheat. Like, how does that look good for your own product? Like, I understand stopping it all, and you don't want those types of things to happen, but yeah, it's insane. And I'm not too...
It's interesting because obviously you'll know more about it than me, but I've not really looked into it. But I spoke to Big Steve, a City creator, about it yesterday. Mm-hmm. He actually lives not too far away. He lives in Rosendale, which is near Burnley, in between Burnley and Manchester. So I was speaking to him about it the other day, and he was saying he's not worried at all. But again, he said a similar sort of thing, like, it's not just to be an arrogant, cocky City fan. It's like when you look at it and you look at the lawyers and the wording that City are using in their articles and their press conferences or whatever, said they are extremely confident of not, I'm going to say getting away with it, but that's obviously the wrong term, but extremely confident of winning the battle against the FA. So yeah, it's interesting that you say that as well.
Yeah, and I'm totally okay with using the word being acquitted, because then that doesn't necessarily say you aren't guilty or you are guilty. It's just, let's just move on. Because it's just, I don't want to say not guilty, because it's just people get so angry about all that stuff. So it's just so silly. Salt. Everyone is breaking themselves over the FFP now, not signing contracts for existing players, all that sort of stuff, and we're the dodgy ones. Yeah, exactly. It's making everyone move weird, and I think everyone just is so fearful, because if Everton and Nottingham Forest are going to get in trouble, what are you going to do?
It's like, I can see the Forest link, because I don't see how they bring too much money in. And they spent so much. Like, they spent so much, and then they've got this link with Olympiacos, and you can see that they clearly move money and players between the two clubs as well. Like, don't get me wrong, I know City have got the City group, but they don't make it as obvious. Like, Forest literally bring players in and then sell them to Olympiacos. It's like, we know about your links, we know what you're doing. But obviously City bring money in through sponsorships and stuff. And I know every club does, but City can demand more money than the likes of Forest. They get further in competitions, they play in Europe. So they're going to be bringing in more money. And obviously that all counts to FFP. Whereas Forest are just a bog standard Premier League side at this time 3-4 years ago, are in the Championship. So don't know where they're getting all their money from, but I can understand why they're really worried at the minute with FFP, because they spend a lot.
Yeah, I know it was like 36 players, because the moment they started buying all those players, I was the only one on our show being like, hey, I understand this is Nottingham Forest and they're not really need to be a worry, but this is weird. No, like, they're spending a lot of money. They're bringing in two complete sides of amount of players, and they're not great. And even spending all that money, expecting to win, Their stadium is only so big. There's only so much, like you said, money you can make through ticket sales and shirt sales and all these other things. Other than making the top 7, I don't really see where they could have made that money back to have saved them from FFP. It was just very weird, very weird. But we'll get back to your team. Let's talk about the previous 5 matches. I meant to make a nice little video thing so we could just watch it, but I didn't have time for that. So we will just talk about them. You mentioned the match against Luton Town that ended up being a draw. You lost a close match to Aston Villa 3-2, and then just a real murderer's row match, because then you lost to Liverpool. You did beat Fulham, which is hopeful, and then the loss to Everton. I actually want to stick with that, because what happened? Because I know they were struggling, and I remember thinking when that match was coming up, I was like, oh yeah, Everton, they're down bad. They're not in a good place mentally. It was shortly after all of the talks about the point deduction and stuff. Then that match kind of happened, and it shocked me.
Yeah, well, obviously the main talking point around that match was Dyche coming back to Burnley for the first time. And Burnley fans knew what was going to happen. Like, we watched Dyche for 9 years and we loved it. We loved him. We still do. But Sean Dyche teams are strong. They're powerful men. You know, they're muscular men. They will beat you in the air. They'll get in your faces. They'll leave a mark on you. And we're a young side who's very inexperienced. And we just knew that the dominators, we knew that the dominators in the air. We knew that the dominators on set pieces. And that's exactly what we did. We didn't lay a glove on them. They were better than us in every single area of the pitch. And that was pretty worrying. I remember leaving that match. To be honest, I've thought we've been down since the home defeat against Palace. That's the first time I left the turf saying, nah, we ain't going to get out of this, because Palace are just as bad, if not worse, than Everton. And they didn't even need to get out of second gear to beat us. Like, they just beat us 2-0 and they beat us very comfortably. They didn't have to do anything. But yeah, leaving the turf after that Everton game, a lot of Burnley fans were like, yeah, this is pretty poor now. But then we actually got the win, like you say, against Fulham, and that kind of came out of nowhere. Like, it was weird, because at the start of the season, as I mentioned already, we were dreadful. We deserved to be where we were. There were so many games, including the opening day against you lot, where we're 1-0 down after like 5 minutes, and we're like, lads, come on, like, you're not going to come back in the Prem when you're giving goals away like this. And then we slowly started getting better. There was that obviously Palace game where we were dreadful, and that was a time where a lot of Burnley fans were like, right, this is unacceptable. We understand that it's going to be a tough season, but we didn't think it was going to be this bad. And, you know, you're losing games without laying a mark on anybody. Like, things need to change. And then we started to get a bit better. Company tweaked a few things, like I mentioned already about the Sander Berg incident, moving him into like a box-to-box. Changed a couple of things as well. Started playing an actual left-back at left-back, which was an absolute masterstroke. Instead of trying right-backs at left-back and centre-backs at left-back, which wasn't working, obviously, because it was trying to create the Ian Martson role from last season. But in the end, he's switched that to the right back. But we won't get into that too much. I don't want to bore you with it. But then we did start getting better. But then that Everton game come along. And we were getting better without really winning games. Like, we lost at home to West Ham, but we were unlucky because we conceded too late on. But we were the better side for the majority of that match. And then just little stuff like that. And then this Everton game came along. It was like a drop right back down to where we were at the start of the season. But then obviously we carried on that trajectory afterwards. And then, yeah, we might have only had one win in the last 5 games. But, you know, it was a good win against a good Fulham side who at the time were like 8th. They've fallen a little bit since. But they were doing quite well at the time. And yeah, I was pretty impressed with that. And then obviously it's Liverpool after that. You expect to get beat against Liverpool. We weren't great. They scored 2 really good goals. Fair play to them. That's the last time I'll ever have to see Klopp at Turf Moor, which at least that's a bonus. And then after that, it was, like you said, the Villa game. Now, I actually went to that. I took my little boy. I had a really good day out, and we played really, really, really well. Like, Villa are going for Champions League, right? And we went there, we scored twice. And in the end, as is always the case, and will be the case again on Wednesday, we were robbed because of VAR. The referee gave them ridiculous... It was 2-2. They were pressing. It's one of them things where you can see why the referee's giving it as a foul but it's so soft these days. And you know, when VAR is looking
Yes.
at it, they're going to look at it over and over again, magnify it, look at it. You're going to give it the pen. But Villa should have had a man sent off about 20 minutes before that. And that was the main gripe with Burnley fans. They scored the late penalty, and obviously we lost the match. But yeah, we played really well in that game. You know, we sat back and countered them very well, and that's when we are quite good. If a team lets us just have the ball and sits back and tries to counter us, that's when we struggle. But Villa had a lot of the ball, pressed us back and pressed us back. We then won the ball back, countered, and scored a couple of decent goals. And obviously last time out, as I've already mentioned, Luton. I thought Vincent got it spot on against Luton. Because they're good when they're similar to us. They're good without the ball. So we let them have the ball. Vincent let them have the ball, and they couldn't do anything with it. They couldn't break us down. We deserved the lead when we went in the league. I still say we deserved to win the match, and that would obviously make the league table look a lot better. We'd have 14 points, so they'd only have 15. But again, like I said, James Trafford was fouled, so. Yeah, more downs than ups in the last 5 games. Just the one win. Should have been 2. Very unlucky at Villa. But there's been positive signs there. Put it this way, the last 5 games were better than the first 5 games at the start of the season and the 5 games after that. Like we are getting better. And I feel like if the season started tomorrow, we'd be in a better position and potentially stay up. But I just think we've given ourselves too much to do.
And the way company wants to play football, that's also what gets you guys in trouble. And I don't mean trouble like a bad thing, because I want teams to play a more open, attacking football. But when you go up against a Roy Hodgson, Sean Dyche, where they're just going to sit and just, even like a Jose Mourinho, obviously he's not there, but you get those guys where they don't really care about how they look, how the match goes. They just want to win, and it's by any means necessary. That is the next step in company's maturity, is how do I keep this attacking, fun, free-flowing, creative style while also maintaining a little bit of ball possession and raising my team's know-how and IQ and when to make runs and passes and stuff like that. I believe it can be done. And you're very close, and you shouldn't. And obviously, this is easy me saying as a City fan that, and I'm not even saying that you don't, but I believe Burnley fans should have pride in that, at least, that you've came to the Premier League and you've swung. Like, you could be like Sheffield, who comes to every single match and they're just like hiding in the back, waiting for the best and just trying to lose every match 1-0. Like that's miserable. Shout out to the red half of Sheffield. We have them on, and every single time I have him on, I laugh so much because he's just killing the team. He's just like, it's worthless. None of the players really should be in the Premier League. Half of them probably shouldn't even be in the Championship. It's just
we beat Sheffield United 5-0, so that tells you where they're at. Like, they are better now because obviously they sacked Heckingbottom after that. But I worked with a Sheffield United fan until recently, and I said to him, "Well, what's your thoughts on Wilder then?" And he said, "Well, we won't be getting beat 5-0 every week, but we'll probably get beat 2-0 every week." And I'm like, I guess so, yeah. But that's the level that they're at. So yeah,
progress?
Watch this. They'll end up finishing above us now after I've said that. But yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, I do personally prefer this style of play. But there's not I don't see a right and a wrong way to play football. Like, if a team wants to stink the players out, fair enough to them. Like, it's frustrating as a fan to watch. But that's what makes the beautiful game beautiful, right? There's loads of different ideologies, there's loads of different thought processes, different tactics, different ways to win a match. And when we did play that style under Dyche, there was nothing more enjoyable than going to the Emirates, going to Anfield, going to Old Trafford. I would like to add the Etihad to that, but it never happened. Stinking the place out and coming away with a win. Because now if we do that, fans are just like, oh, I can't believe we got beat against Burnley when they're third bottom, but, they played good stuff and they're a decent side.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas back then, it'd be like, oh, bloody hell, can't believe they beat us when they play rubbish football. It used to be funded that. But yeah, I do prefer this style of play. But it's obviously not been great this season because there's been a lot of mistakes and a lot of defeats. And it doesn't matter how you play football when you're getting beat, it's still miserable. Like, which actually has led to some fans saying, "Oh, I'd rather us stink the place out and stay in the game at this stage." Like, I wouldn't rather us do anything now at this stage because we're getting beat regardless. Like, the last 18 months under Dice were turgid; they were dreadful. We weren't winning games. We were getting beat every week and watching terrible football every week. At least now we're seeing a young team trying to play football in the right way. Again, I've just been hypocritical towards myself. Said there's no right or wrong way to play football. Then I said these are trying to play it in the right way. But you know what I mean?
Life is about hypocriticism. Yeah, like that. That's a good thing about us being humans. We sin. We're flippant. We get to just do whatever we want. You know, I think you're killing it. Because I agree. There isn't no quote unquote right and wrong way because you play to win, but there is aesthetically pleasing football, and but also I feel weird being a City fan, being like, I'd much rather lose playing beautiful football than lose playing like a bad football. But I mean, I agree.
Yeah, exactly.
You. I would love to know, because you mentioned like you're short on people and kind of struggling with like players and left back. What is the starting 11 do you think Burnley company is going to put out against Manchester City?
Well, Trafford will be in goal. That's pretty much a guarantee. It depends who we bring in, I suppose, between now and then. Obviously, I think we've had to make some signings already by now, to be fair, so there won't be any new faces in there. But last time out at left back, we played, I think it was Al Dakil, or I can't remember exactly. But if he plays left back against you boys tomorrow, he will get battered. So it's going to be interesting to see what we do. He's dreadful. Like, I loved him in the Championship last year. But this year he's been getting overrun. We'll play Vitinho at right back, probably O'Shea and maybe Bayer at centre back if he's back. Left back, it could be Al Dakil or it could be Ekdal. And then in the middle, we will have Brownhill and hopefully Sanderberg, because he missed last time out. But it was just an illness, so he should be okay. Left mid will be Odebear. Right mid could be Gudmundsson, Jakob Brun-Larsen, or Mike Trezor, it could be. Trezor could play on the left, to be fair. And then probably Amdouni and Foster up top.
They just, the Women's FA Cup draw just happened. We cover both men's and women, and our women's team just drew Tottenham after they just played them last week. And both men and women played them, and I feel like they also played them again like 2 weeks ago. It's just like, man, can we get away from Tottenham? We just beat them. I'm so over it. Let's see. Burnley will have the second best half of the season of the bottom three teams, which I agree.
I do agree with that. Like I said, I do think we'll finish 18th and end up finishing above Luton and Sheffield United, because we have slowly shown signs of improvement, whereas Sheffield United have just been dreadful all season. And yeah, credit to Luton, as I've said already, but I do think they'll look where we're out. But yeah, I do agree with that. I just feel that the gap's too big, unless Everton, because I still feel like Everton have got a run in them, because like they had that run earlier in the season, didn't they, where they were they just turned into Real Madrid for about a month, and then they've been terrible again since. And I do think they've got another run in them like that. But yeah, I think the only way we stay up now is if Everton get another points deduction, or Forest maybe get 10.
Well, I would love to end the show with your score prediction. How do you see the match going? Yeah.
Can we skip this bit?
It's well, because I will start with this, because we recorded last night and I was talking to my show bros, and they were surprisingly, like, they still thought we were gonna win, but it was like a 2-1, a 4-2. I was like, you think Burnley's gonna score 2 on us at home? Like, it was just they're not worried, but they're apprehensive, and that kind of shocked me.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason for you guys to be apprehensive. We don't have a left back. We've been dreadful all season. Like, there's a running joke in Burnley about the City games. It's like every time I'm playing City, everyone's like 5-0, because you literally beat us 5-0 4 times in a row once, and then And then you only beat us 2-0 the time after that, and then you beat us 6-0. Like, it's just City always beat us and always stuff us. And like I said earlier, there was even a game in 2000, 2001 at Main Road that I went to, and you stuffed us 5-1. Like, it just happens all the time. You just always stuff us. Obviously, down the years, there's been a couple of good results. We beat you 1-0 at the Turf, which I think was 2016, a long time ago. Now, might have even been 2014. I can't remember. But Johan Berg Gudmundsson, who still plays for us now, I think played in that game. But it was, I'll tell you who did play in that game, Vincent Kompany for you boys. But it was George Boyd with the hit. Just beautiful volley, straight into the bottom corner. And one of my favourite ever away days is 2010, when we were the first time I'd ever been in the Premier League since like the 60s, 70s. And we went 2-0 up at City. And I was in the away end, but I was next to the home fans, and I was giving it the big one. I was like, "Hey!" And I was like, you're going down though. And I was like, yeah, we're not the way. And then City come back to 3-2. And I could hear him. Where are you now? Look at him. He won't even look at us. And I didn't. I just thought, I'm not giving him the satisfaction. So I just stayed looking straight forward, and I could practically feel his breath on my neck, give him his shit. And then we scored in like 88th minute to make it 3-3. And I've never ever done this. I've never done it before, and I've never done it since. But I literally, like the side in partition where there's normally like a flag or a banner. I was just jumping on that, and I was like, yeah, because he was just giving me so much grief. So that's one of my favourite ever away days, to be honest. But yeah, that's the only two decent memories I've got against you guys down the years. So there's been a lot more painful memories. My little boy is 5, and his first ever away game was last year in the FA Cup quarter-final against you, and obviously we lost 6-0. So, Parker, if you see this when you're older, mate, I am sorry for that. Yeah, so there's not... So my son's first ever memory of football, first ever memory of an away day game is losing 6-0 to you guys. And that'll never be taken away from him, mate. He'll have that for the rest of his life. So in the year 2090, he'll remember that. And he'll be thinking about that, but yeah, no, I'm not. As for a score prediction, yeah, it's a running joke in Burnley that City always beat us 5-0, so I'll go for 5-0 to City.
And I will take it. Well, Shady Gang, please give it up for Joe one more time. Please, before we get you out of here, plug yourself, plug Turfcast, let people know where they can find you on socials, YouTubes, any of those things that you are on.
Yeah, so obviously the show and the podcast and the YouTube channel is all called Turfcast Podcast. So just search Turfcast Podcast on anything, you'll find it. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're even on TikTok, Instagram. I even made a Threads. Do you remember when Threads were a thing? I even made a Threads.
It's slowly picking itself up because they have welcomed in EU. It's not the same. It's definitely not the same, but it's nicer. The people are nice, so that's what I do enjoy. That there's not too much like smack talk.
I've tried to start it back up again, but I just keep forgetting about it. If I'm honest, I remember I tweeted on like the 1st of January, like, oh, shall it be my New Year's resolution? It's not tweeted, obviously, threaded. On the 1st of January, my New Year's resolution to use Thread more, and I think I put about 3 posts, but I completely forgot. But it's interesting, but yeah. So I'm on all of them, and for me myself, my name's Joe Redmond. You can follow me on @JoeTomRed on Twitter. But yeah, do quite a few things now. I linked up with Betfred and Sportsman recently. I've been on the Overlap a couple of times with Gary Neville. I'm regularly on TalkSport. So yeah, just come and join in the debate if you can.
Love it. Well, Shady Gang, I will see you Thursday night for our lit stream on FanFest Live, where we bring 3 guests. They come on one at a time, 15 minutes, 20 minutes at a time. Only one of our people, our City fans. The other 2, who knows who they root for? It just brings a nice level of chaos to our show. Then we have Friday, another Breaking Bread match preview show with Charlie Core, who's a Brentford fan. And then Sunday, 30 minutes before our Man City women's match begins, we will be covering their game against Leicester. You know the vibes. Shady gang, shady gang, shady gang.